2026 kicking it off with a bang. Happy New Year's, everybody. We have a brand new XRP video, the first of this year that I am recording. I have a ton of brand new clips, new information that just came to light today. We have to go over. We got some stuff from Paul Barron. We have some stuff from Crypto in America. We have stuff on Clarity Act and regulation and what that's going to mean. Hopefully we'll get a vote this month in January. And of course, we're going to take a look at some other XRP news, but let's just jump into this, guys. If you get any value, please hit like and leave a comment below. I'd really appreciate that. Chad Steingraber checking in. January 1st, 2026, XRP perfectly hits the 180 price zone from last April 7th and flattens across it, expecting some big green net from inflows this month. So hopefully the price will start moving. And then year 2025 final XRP ETFs, 1.57 billion in share volume. That is an insane number to see in less than 8 weeks. 1.57 billion. Can we continue this roll into 2026? Another 2, 3, 6 months of this, we're going to be at 7, 8, 10 billion dollars before you know it. And then you have Franklin Templeton updated its XRP ETF spot holdings data. XRP held about 118 million. Market value is 215 million, and shares in circulation are 10,700,000. So that's pretty cool to see. And as these grow, I will keep track. So here's his first video that I saw that I wanted to play for you. What will they say in 2026 about crypto? Boom.
What does Crypto in America really mean for you?
Well, if I had to put it in a nutshell,
It's the future of the U.S. financial system.
The next generation of the internet.
Financial freedom.
Mainstream adoption.
Frontierism, liberty.
Continuation of the American experiment.
Crypto in America is
Freedom money. The technology that takes us into the next century.
and innovation.
That's what Crypto in America means.
A uniquely American technology.
An overhaul of the capital markets.
It's freedom.
The epicenter of it really is America now.
Operating systems across many different businesses.
Wealth creation mechanism.
Freedom, the ability to innovate.
The next global financial system.
Really transformative technology.
Innovation and development.
Freedom.
America is open for business.
Very exciting time for crypto in America.
I thought that was great. That everything everybody said there is absolutely true. It is freedom. It is the next financial system. It is America's way to open up more business. I mean, I thought that was just a fantastic way to start off 2026. I got used to saying 2026. Oh man, it's going to take me a while. If I mess up, don't be too harsh on me, okay? All right, here is a Paul Barron highlight I wanted to play.
Ethereum is right now versus where XRP is today. And you're talking about the number 2 and 3 asset. Ripple's plans for becoming, that favorite position for banks continues to accelerate. And if you look at some of the things that people are kind of posing right here, I want to show you this article. This one was kind of caught me off guard a little bit, but it's interesting because there's two things that it's breaking down. One, of course, is the issue of, I won't say price prediction, but the idea of price support. And the concept behind this is, could XRP actually reach a 10K price figure? And it's the math is different. The guy is analyzing this more from a standpoint of what happens if we see an absolute move on XRP that's based around not the normal assumptions. So he talks a little bit, right here, according to him, XRP should not be evaluated using the same assumptions as retail-driven cryptocurrencies. So the point behind this is all of the scenarios that are playing out, whether it is big bank adoption, what we're going to see in the ETF craze that most likely will take off, and then we start to look at just the cross-border side of it. Let's not even forget about or even mention the DeFi play that's most likely going to drive a lot more interest on this.
Yeah,
right.
When you think about this, because is there any other digital asset that has all of these things going for it at the same time?
that is a great question. I don't know if Paul's having the conversation with Abs, but let me just play this.
How quickly this whole thing can change. And I think the next big change that's happening here in 2026 is that institutions are going to look at the XRP ledger unbiasedly. They're going to look at what Ripple has been developing here through the acquisition of real world companies. And I don't know if we have this prepared for today. We can briefly touch on this, that G Treasury just partnered with JP Morgan to enable real-time payments. Well, how did that happen? They looked at the market objectively and they said, this is the best product in this space. Let's take advantage of this product. I think we're going to see a whole lot more of that in 2026. And Peter Schiff, I was fortunate enough to meet him at the Bitcoin conference this year. very nice guy, very personable. We had a conversation. He laughed at me when I brought up XRP. But what I will say is that in the end, I think me and you, Paul, we agree on this. By 2030, he's not going to look so smart. I think that when you look at Bitcoin, and I'll let you dive.
All right, let's keep it going, guys. A lot of really good information. Yeah, and here's that conversation between the two guys.
And XRP, of course, anchors around $2. Right now, we all know we're trading around 185 to 190. But this bank charter goes into play. Now, granted, right now it's a bank for eventually institutions, but I think at some point we're going to see next level banking coming out of Ripple. And when that occurs, institutional validation is going to be off the hook for XRP. What do you think happens next move from Wall Street based on Ripple's banking charter, if in fact we get to see more power coming out of that strategy?
You know what I find most interesting, Paul, and maybe it's a clickbait kind of title, but it's a supply shock narrative. And here's the logic behind that. You already have these ETF issuers, and Jake Klaver shared this on one of his live streams the other day. Each one of these ETF issuers needs to get to $100 million in assets under management before these big companies can write them a $10 million check. And the logic behind that is that no single investor can own more than 10% of the ETF. So before these large companies can even really get allocated, a company like Canary Capital has to go out there and get $100 million worth of assets under management. You also have the company in Evernorth, which is creating an XRP treasury strategy. I believe that's going to expand well beyond $5 billion in 2026. Then you have the EVM sidechain. Then you have the smart contracts. You also have Ripple building real world use cases on top of the XRP ledger. And I think the icing on the cake is that if they get this national banking charter, which we know they did, they're going to be able to bring traditional banking, they're going to be able to modernize the traditional banking rails through the companies that they've acquired here. So it's really interesting how it all comes full picture. There's not a single leadership team like Ripple in the entire blockchain space. And I'll double down on what the Grayscale guy had to say on your podcast earlier this week. This is a once in a generation, once in a lifetime shift in finance, right? This will not occur again in the next 10 years. This will not occur.
Okay, really quickly, he was asking them, like, what is the impact going to have with the National Trust Bank Charter? And I don't think we really answered that. The impact is simple here. Ripple is going to be able to be directly connected to the Fed. Right now, Ripple has to go through these partners, right? They're partnered with HSBC or they're partnered with BNY, right? And so they are like the third party provider on the outside. The national bank, right, which could be BNY or any of the ones that Ripple's mentioned, right, in the United States, is connected directly to the Fed. You can bypass all of those additional partnerships, and now Ripple is directly connected, XRP, RLUSD on Fed rails. That is the entire Fed financial system Ripple will then have access to. That is the biggest thing that probably should have been mentioned here, right? And how long is this going to take? Normally, to set up a bank, once you get the pre-approval, right, it takes anywhere from 12 to 18 months, depending how complicated it is. You have to go out and you have to hire people. You have to bring in the security. You have to bring in the funding for the bank and the reserves and all of that stuff. Background checks, it takes some time. But Ripple already has some connections to the New York Department of Financial Services, which is one of the regulators that oversees the bank. It's the OCC and it's the New York Department of Financial Services. Because Ripple's stablecoin, RLUSD, had to wait for a New York Department of Financial Services approval before launching that thing. And so because Ripple has some of this stuff already pre-figured out, I imagine the bank will be set up sometime in 2026. I imagine it's going to be taking about 9 to 10 months to get that done. Look towards August, September. That is just a random prediction that I'm putting out, but I do think it happens in 2026. A lot of everything else that was shared here is fantastic. It's great. I love it. I just really wanted to hear the answer about how big the national bank charter was, not all the other stuff.
Again, in the next 25 years, it may not even occur again in the next 80 to 100 years. So I think we have to be extremely patient. And as these building blocks are laid out and the foundation is laid for the future of finance, Ripple is clearly giving us the picture that they're going to acquire existing companies, bring those businesses onto the XRP ledger, and inherently increase demand for the underlying asset in XRP, even if they're only using the RLUSD stablecoin. So I didn't even touch on tokenization in that whole dialogue, but I think it's very, very clear that if people are patient enough, we're going to hit this euphoric moment where the amount of XRP in supply doesn't correlate with the amount of demand that's in the market.
Very well said at the end there. Very well said. All right, once the Clarity Act passes in the Senate, the crypto market will have rules and regulations. Crypto will be legal. This is one of the parts and pieces that still is missing here in the United States. Once this gets over the finish